Welcome to Understanding the Bible with Pastor Stephen. This is season 4, episode 43, and we're doing finances today. This is the second part in the series. And if you remember from last time, we had talked about going over saving and budgeting. So this is going to actually be the first class after we did the Bible verses. And of course, we had discussed the matter of saving money, earning an interest, and making a plan so that you have enough money to complete the tower that you're building. Those were some of the things we referenced in regards to stewardship in the Bible. So, what we're going to be looking at today is those specific ways that you can budget and prepare for this sort of thing. So, the first thing we're going to look at today is going to be basically setting yourselves up to creating a future. And that means you've got to know how much money you have coming in and how much money you have going out. So, we're going to build a budget today. If this is not your thing, if you've already got a budget, you're able to save money, you might skip to the next class that we're going to be covering, which is getting out of debt. But this one is going to go over itemizing your monthly costs, dividing your income into buckets, leaving out of those buckets, not living on credit cards, and then building those separate line items or buckets of cash to where you actually have a surplus. So let's get into building a budget. Now, if you want to do it electronically with an app on your phone, I don't personally recommend it. I like the old school way of having paper and pencil. All right. But you can download a budget app called Rocket Money or Mint. They should be no charge. They both, of course, offer subscription services. They link up to your bank account. To me, it's tying things together. I don't want people having access to my bank account, even apps. So I don't use this. But I do know people that have used Rocket Money and Mint, and they, glowing recommendations on how good that helps you budget. But here's what you want to do. And I would highly recommend that if you need this, that you will go back and watch the video on this stuff instead of just the voice. But you need to set up your different line items on things that you know cost you money, things that you need money for every month. Now you can divide that into every 2 weeks based on your paycheck. But to get started, if you look at Acts chapter 5, they talked about giving offerings. Ananias and Sapphira brought offerings and they had sold land and they were giving it to the Lord. And a lot of people talk about tithes and so on and so forth. And I'm not getting into a spiritual lesson on tithing versus offering. But I will say this, the purpose of the tithe is Old Testament to support the tribe of Levi. There's lots of benefits of tithing throughout the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. But it was a requirement for the Jews to tithe, and that tithe just meant 10%. That's the word for 10%, basically. Offering really comes into play when it goes to the temple and they were bringing offerings to the Lord over and above their tithe, or in the New Testament when they brought offerings to help certain Christians that were going through struggling with things. So in Acts chapter 5, Ananias and Sapphira brought in an offering of some land they had sold, and they told, I want to say it was Paul, it might have been Peter, they told the apostle, they said, this is everything. We sold the land. This is 100%. We are so holy that we're giving it all to God, to the church. Now, they didn't say it in those words, but that seems to be the indication, right? They were killed for it because they lied. They had kept back part of it. And you get to the end, and the apostle tells Sapphira, the wife, after her husband had died, she comes in and says the same thing. And he gives her like two chances to change her mind and says, look, is this really the whole thing? And she says, yeah, it's 100%. And he says, because you and your husband conspired together to lie to God and to God's people, you will be killed this day. And she fell over dead. The whole point of that was not that they were required to give 100% of what they sold. And he clearly explains it. The whole point was You could have kept everything and not given anything to God, but you chose to lie. So it was the lying, not the dollar amount, that got them to be killed or caused them to be killed. My whole point on that is the Bible verse that says that we ought to give generously and freely whatever God lays on our heart to give. So I do not say that there is a required 10% tithe. Some pastors do, but I view everything as the first fruits of what you get. For me, it's the beginning of the month when I get my paycheck. I set aside a certain amount that I give to the church, to God. I set aside another amount that I put in an envelope for charity, for whatever comes up. Somebody needs money, I can just give it to them. Okay. That's my tithe and offerings. Now, I additionally, my family and I have gotten offerings when we come into some unexpected funds or we're exceptionally blessed at the end of the month. We'll give an extra offering. Okay. So, my point in all this is when you build a budget, you need to set up your tithes and offerings budget as well, not just your mortgage, not just your gas and electric bill, your water bill. And by the way, if you own a house, you should have money set aside for maintenance of the house as well. Your phone bill, your car, if you own a car repairs ought to be set aside as well. You also need to plan for how much gas you're going to spend every week. So there's lots of things you put, but you need to line item each one of those things and how much that you think you spend on this. Now, this has to be adjustable because say I think I'm going to spend $120 on gas for my car this month, and at the end of the month, I realize I've spent $30 more. Well, next month, you need to add that to your budget when you get paid an extra $30 in the gas line item. So my point is you list everything that you know it's going to cost you. You set that amount down and you have to determine to set that aside every time you get paid. Now, if it's every 2 weeks or if it's every month, do the math. If it's every month and you find out that you need to set this aside every 2 weeks, then that's what you've got to do. But you've got to build a budget to where you have all of your money that's coming in listed in a line item for each of the things that it goes out. Then you get your total costs added up. Now, for this example on the screen here, I've got all my savings. I even have savings $50 a month set for Christmas so that when Christmas comes around, I've got the money and I don't have to go put it on a credit card or anything like that. Then you get your total costs. And in this example, I say my monthly cost is $4,258. You add them all up, right? Now, you can do an envelope system, and that's where you set up an envelope for each line item and you cash out your entire paycheck and put it in the envelopes. Or you can do it with your bank. I've done it with my bank where everything goes direct deposit into my checking account. Then I've opened up about 10 different savings account, and you can see on the screen here I have set my water, gas, and trash bill every month. Right now, I've got $336 in there. Extra money for the yard or the garden, grass seed, fertilizer, stuff like that, or gardening tools. I've got $40 in there. I even have a savings set aside to buy gym items. You know, we've got an elliptical in our house, which at some point that's going to break down. I'll need a new one. I've got my mortgage, my family vacation, my Christmas fund, all of those different savings accounts, in addition to my house payment, which comes out automatically. All of these things are set up so I know where the money is and how much money I have saved in each one of these buckets or line items. Now, I've opened up my line item for the water, gas, and trash, and you can see on my screen here that I have it to automatically deposit money out of my paycheck once a month, $175. Then in August, my bill automatically comes out of there. It cost me 160. So notice I got an extra $15. But the next month, I still do the automatic 175. And you'll see why in a minute. But some months it's going to cost a little more, right? So you always want to pad that and have a few more dollars each month. Then you got to compare that to what your income is. All right. So you've got your total. and you've got to look at your guaranteed money that you can budget. So your W-2 wages. If you have a side hustle that's bringing in $25 extra a month, if you get an extra salary from someone else in the house, if you have rental income, hey, I'm guaranteed to get $150 extra each month above my mortgage and stuff. So all of those need to be itemized. Now, if you have residual income, and that's going to be things like my podcast, I want to say like $24 last month. That doesn't count because I can't put that in there as guaranteed budgeted line item every month. So that's separate. That's business finances. That goes into a separate budget item, not with my household expenses. Okay. So only the income that's going to go towards your house that is guaranteed every month. All right, here we go. So then the next thing is you compare your total income to your total costs. So here in this example, my total costs is $4,258 and my total income is 4,200. So if my costs right there you can see is $58 more than my income, I have two choices. I can cut my costs, find a way to save $58 a month, or I can make more money to make up the difference. Those are your only two choices. You cannot afford to put those on credit cards, the extra $58 that you owe every month, right? So you're going to go through each line item and you're going to see where can I save money? Is your electric bill too high? Start shutting lights off. Did you use too much water? Start timing yourself in the shower. Don't use that much water. I mean, honestly, there are things that you can do to cut your bills, right? What about your phone bill? Is your phone bill the best plan with all the extras and you're paying, $250 a month for your phone bill, $250 a month for your wife's phone bill, and $250 a month for your kids? That's $750 a month. What if you give your kid the cheapest phone and the smallest plan and you save yourself $200 a month? Or what if you go to a cheap service like Mint Mobile? Now, I did this last year. I went to Mint Mobile. I paid $50 for each phone. So I paid $200 out of pocket. They were not used phones. It was a deal where I got a practically free phone. And it's just Android. I know some people don't like that, but who cares? It saved me money. And I pay $15 a month for each of the phones. So I actually pay $60 a month and it cost me $200 up front. That is way better than $750 a month. So you can cut costs. And if you want a link for Mint Mobile, hey, I get referrals. I can get you $50 off your Mint Mobile bill, and I get $50 if you join up through my link. So, but there's little things like that. Well, hey, I could make an extra $50 this month, right? So email me, angrypatriot42 at hotmail.com if you want that. Sorry, at yahoo.com, angrypatriot42 at Yahoo. So you can do little things to increase your income, right? And that's just a little thing. But in this example, I'm looking to cut $58, not increase my income. Okay. So in this example, I've got to cut $58. What do I do? Now, if your income does exceed your line item budget, you have a surplus. In this example, I say my income is $4,300. My costs are $4,258. That gives me extra money, a surplus of $42 a month. Here's the thing. You need to set up a new line item to use up that $42 every month. You want a $0 budget. Your budget has to come down to using up all the money in it. So what I did is I set up two separate funds here to spend that $42. First of all, I added $10 a month to my maintenance fund for the house. So I know that that's going to help me down the road to save if something goes wrong in the house. So I'm going to save $10 extra. Now I have 32 left out of that extra income. I did a new line item of emergency savings, $22 a month. And then I did a separate line item for silver, $10 a month. I know that silver is going up in value. It doubled this last month to $50 an ounce. And I know that in the end times, if you don't have the mark of the beast, you can't buy anything. So what I'm going to do is I figure, maybe I have a couple of years to save, maybe 20 years. I don't know, at $10 a month, that's still, I can buy a couple ounces of silver that will maybe buy a meal or two or something that I need gas for my car or something. Okay. So I think lots of different ways, lots of rabbit trails, different thoughts here. And I'm thinking, okay, what could I use for the future where I'm not going to spend this $42 a month? I'm going to save it for emergencies, maintenance on the house, and possibly buying silver if I can save up enough. All right. So now I've used up the $42. Now on the screen here, I did a different example where you add $10 to your offering every month instead. But the whole point is use up that extra income so that you have $0 in your budget left over. Now, once you have that balanced budget, which by the way, Congress hasn't done my entire life, and that's why America is so deeply in debt. Okay. But once you have $0 left over, 100% of your money is accounted for. That's what you want. Now you have to stick to it, live out of those buckets that you've built. So, in order to do this, in order to make sure you don't overspend, that you don't get into debt, number one, control your emotions. You don't buy things just because you see that you want it. If you go to the store and you see something that you want and you want to buy it and you're not sure if you have the money in that particular bucket, spending, fun, or food for the groceries for that month, or whatever, Thanksgiving is coming up. I see a great pecan pie for $22. Control your emotions. If I'm not sure if I've got an extra $22 in my food budget for that month, I'm going to go home and not buy it. Then I'm going to pull out my budget and I'm going to look at it and see, okay, how much month is left? I've got a week left. I've got $120 in my budget for the month. You know what? I think we can get by next week on $100. So I've got $20 to use. And then I scrounge around my couch and find two more dollars and go and buy the pecan pie. Okay. Don't buy it if you don't know for a fact you've got the money to use. Then control your spending, self control. Do not carry balances on your credit card. Do not get in the habit of paying for all your groceries with a credit card and hoping you have enough money to pay for it. So, what I do with the groceries is I actually put it on the credit card because I know how much I'm going to the store to spend. I plan on, hey, I've got $65 and I add it up as I go and I don't spend more than $65. Then when I get home, I go and I immediately pay that off on the credit card using the money that's in my budget. So don't carry balances on your credit card. They'll charge you interest. That's going to get dangerous. And then you want to increase those buckets of cash. Each of those line items. The goal is strictly adhere to your budget every time you get paid. Then if you don't use it all, you're starting with a little bit extra. So in this example, I've got gas for my car is $100 a month. I only used 87 last month. Now I've got $13 left over. Don't touch it. Next payday, I put my $100 in just like it's budgeted, and I'm starting with 113. So it gives me that $13 extra for the next month. Now, here's the goal. Build up each of those line items until you have at least 3 months bills saved up in that line item. So in my gas for the car, I want to get $13 a month if I can until I've saved up $300. Then the next month, I put in my $100 like I normally do, and now I've got 400. This month I use only $87 again, so I've got that $13 extra, but now because I've been saving it month after month after month, I at the end of the month have $313 in my gas line item for my car. That's great. I've got 3 months saved up. All right. So the importance of that is then you take out that 3 months of savings, that $300 from that line item, and you save it. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. That leaves me with $13. Then this month I get my paycheck, I put my $100 into it, and I'm starting again with $113. I've got that $13 excess this month. That $300 is saved though. All right, we'll get to that in just a second. So in our savings, there's two different kinds of savings. Well, there's actually a lot more than that, but what we've talked about so far. Your budgeted savings, your line items, like I said, I do $50 a month for Christmas. That doesn't count as my 3 month savings. That's a regular budgeted item that I know I'm going to spend. It's short term savings for a goal. Christmas comes around, I want to pay cash for everything. But your emergency savings should be enough to pay all your bills if you have zero income for the next 3 to 6 months. So, what you want to start with is build up 3 months in each one of those line items and then pull that out into an emergency savings account. Now, we'll get to that in a second, but you also need cash on hand. You need savings at home. So that should be one of your line items. For me, for a while there, it was I would take out $100 every month and save it in an envelope at home. So I had cash at home. All right. You also, of course, need to have your retirement savings. So your 401k, your Roth IRAs, we'll get into retirement stuff later, but there's lots of different buckets of savings. One of the other buckets of savings that you're going to need is to be able to buy assets, things that can be resold, things that are actually worthwhile in and of themselves. So that would be like the silver I was talking about before, or guns. I like guns. All right. So you've got your budgeted savings. Now, this is going to be a slow build. You save in each bucket, and you want to have at least 2 times what you need all the time in that bucket. And I prefer to build up to 5 times what you need. Then I take out 3 times, like that $300 for that emergency savings, and we'll put that in a high value savings account. We'll get into that in a moment. But for example, say I do $100 a month. I finally build it up to where there's $500 in there. That's 5 months in that particular line item. So if I have 5 times 100, I take out 300. That leaves me with 2 times what I need for that month in case the bills go over. But I pulled out that 300 for my emergency savings. All right. Once you've got that emergency savings for each line item, then you're good to go. That is an emergency that you don't want to touch. And that's why I say we put it in a high yield savings account. So, for example, in what I've done so far, my monthly budget is $4,258. My ultimate goal, is to have 6 months of savings. 6 times that number is $25,548. Keep it simple, round it up. $26,000 is what I need in my emergency savings. Now, don't feel like that's an insurmountable goal. Your first goal should be 1 month of savings. Okay. So start there. But your emergency savings needs to be liquid cash, but hard to access. So that would be a different bank. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about, okay, let's pretend it's been 3 years and I've saved up all this money and I've got $26,000 in my bank. Okay. I'm going to take that money to a different bank and open up a high yield savings account where I don't go to that bank. I can go online and transfer the money into my normal bank account that I use all the time if I need it, but it takes 2 to 3 business days. So I can't access that emergency savings very easily. Be wise. Matthew chapter 25, verse 27 says, "You ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest." So now this is where we get to how you need to understand what interest is and how it works. Interest on savings accounts is compounded. Compound interest is interest calculated on the principal, the money you put in, and any interest that was saved up from last time and not taken out. So most banks do this. All right. Simple interest doesn't give you interest on the interest, but most banks do. And they state that their savings interest rate is an APY. That's annual percentage yield. And that includes that compounding every month where they give you interest on whatever's interest is in there as well. So let me show you an example. This is really important. This is why that first lesson about the rule of 72 is so important. Traditional accounts, earn about 0.1 to 0.3% interest. Some even earn 0.01% interest. Ridiculous. But at 0.33% interest, not even 1%, $10,000 in 1 year will earn you $33. Not much, but it's something. Now, if you take that $10,000 and you go to a bank like I'm about to tell you and get a high yield savings account, you could earn anywhere from $350 to $500 every year just for having that $10,000 sitting in a high yield account. So, for example, if your 6 month savings is the $26,000, my bank pays 0.1% interest. You multiply that per year times 0.001, and I get $26.01 per year that bank pays me. $26 a year to keep my $26,000 in their bank. That's ridiculous. They're investing it on the stock market and everything, and they're earning tons of money off of that 26,000. But if I take it to a high yield savings account and I earn 4.5% interest, I can actually get $1,170 per year free interest money just from sitting on that savings account. Now my savings account is going to build and maybe even keep up with inflation. Maybe not, but at least it's earning interest to help me, just like Jesus said. At least put it in the bank and earn interest. All right. So, how do you find and open a high yield savings account? Well, high yield savings account can pay interest rate at a minimum of 10 times over the national average for your banks. So online only banks tend to offer the best high yield savings account rates. You can go to investopedia.com and you can look for high yield savings accounts, or HYSA, or you can go to nerdwallet.com and find them. I'll show you that here in just a minute. It doesn't take long at all to open the account. Each institution has its own requirements and fees. Please go to one of these websites that I'm telling you to find the bank. Don't just find a random bank online that is not regulated or is in a foreign country where you put your money in there and all of a sudden it's gone. Okay. Please be wise about this. But if you go to nerdwallet.com, on the very top, you click on banking and choose savings accounts. The first line item that pops up is best high yield savings accounts. It will list Capital One, Open Bank, SoFi, American Express, etc. Now, I want you to look at those at the NerdWallet rating. Anything above a 4.5 is really good. Look at the APY, that's the annual percentage yield. That's the amount of interest you can earn. Also look at minimum balance requirements. Don't go opening these accounts if you've got less than $1,000. You need to have that in liquid funds, either in cash at home or in your bank that can easily be accessed with your ATM. Also, make sure that if you have these funds, like I said, we're talking over $10,000, that you're ready to put into an emergency savings account in a different bank that you'll have access to, but it may take a couple of days. Do not do a CD, a certificate of deposit. That locks up your money and won't let you touch it. And if you take it out early, you will lose all your interest in a CD. So don't do that. Do the high yield savings accounts that I'm talking about. Pay special attention to the minimum balance, the APY, and whether or not there are monthly service fees. You do not ever, should not ever pay a bank to hold on to your money because they are making money with your money. You should not have to pay them additional money. Okay? No service fees. We don't like that. Now, look at your emergency savings. Check your transactions once a month. Roll over that extra 3 months that you have built up in each line item into your emergency savings every chance you get. Let it accumulate all the interest every month to help offset your increase in cost of living. And if you find a better rate 6 months, a year down the road, don't be afraid to switch banks. So here you go, guys. Here is a summary of everything we've covered today. Final tips and takeaways. Make a budget. If you like the electronic handheld device, your phone, use Rocket Money app, or NerdWallet might even have something, or Mint. The Mint app is pretty good. But build up money in each bucket with your regular bank. Once you have 3 to 5 times what you need each month, remember that example where I said if I need $100 a month and now I've got 500 in that bucket, then get a separate bank account somewhere else. Go to investopedia.com or nerdwallet.com and find a high yield savings account that earns more than 3.5 to 4% interest. If you can get 5%, that's great. I couldn't find one. I got 4.5% on mine. But open up a separate bank account with a insured, FDIC insured bank here in the United States. Don't borrow money on your credit cards. That will kill you and ruin your budget. And that's it. That is what I've got today on saving and budgeting. Now, you can get a hold of me um, on my podcast, Understanding the Bible, angrypatriot42 at yahoo.com. If you have questions about this, also, I am a financial strategist with WFG. I am licensed and insured in the state of Texas, and I can get licensed and insured in your state pretty easy. So if you need a financial strategist to help you plan for retirement, things like that, if you need help budgeting, I can certainly get into more detail on these things with you guys as well. Next time, we'll be covering debt. So stay tuned. And until then, keep reading your Bible, guys. Follow me on the different social media and on Spotify. I would definitely appreciate it. If you do have an extra $5 or $6 a month and you want to donate to help this podcast, then subscribe. If not, just keep listening for free. Okay. Got no problem with that. But until next time, we'll be talking about wisdom. So stay tuned and keep searching for truth.